Hey everyone! You probably know the story of the Titanic. On the night of April 14th, 1912, at 11:40 p.m., the massive RMS Titanic had a horrific accident that led to its sinking 3 hours later, around 2:20 a.m. on April 15th. It was the largest ship of its time, and by the early morning, it had completely disappeared beneath the cold waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Over 1,500 people lost their lives that night, which is more than two-thirds of everyone on board. For decades, we've been told that the cause of the tragedy was a collision with an iceberg. But what if I told you that scientists have recently uncovered something else? Something that changes everything we thought we knew about that night. Let me tell you what's been hidden for over 100 years. The Titanic was an enormous ship, 882 feet long, 92 feet wide, and 175 feet tall. With a volume of 46,000 tons, it was built to seem indestructible. People could walk for miles through its endless hallways, and even the ship's officers needed more than 2 weeks to fully memorize its layout. It had 4 gigantic smokestacks, each weighing 60 tons and extending 81.5 feet above the deck. They were positioned at a 30-degree angle to make the ship look even more impressive, and when you factor in the cost to build the Titanic, a staggering $7.5 million at the time, which would be about $166 million today, you can see why people called it the Ship of Dreams. But despite all the grandeur and effort that went into building this magnificent ship, it sank. And for years, the story was that the iceberg was to blame. But new research is pointing to something much darker. Journalist Sonam Maloney, who spent more than 30 years studying the Titanic, discovered a major clue that had been overlooked for a long time: a huge 30-foot-long black spot on the ship's hull. After examining old photographs, Maloney realized this was evidence of a fire. This fire had been burning for weeks before the Titanic even set sail, and it was so intense that it likely weakened the ship's metal by up to 75%. The fire was kept a secret, and the ship was sent out to sea anyway. Why? Well, the owners of the Titanic knew about the fire but didn't want to cancel the voyage. If they had, they would have faced bankruptcy. Tickets were sold out, and they couldn't afford to delay. So they decided to hide the damage, positioning the ship so the burn marks faced away from the dock, away from public view. This is where things get even more interesting. The Titanic's interior was like something out of a luxury hotel. Passengers in first class were treated to incredible amenities: a swimming pool, a Turkish bath, a gym, a beauty salon, and even a special area for dogs. But amid all this opulence, there was one crucial thing missing: binoculars. Sounds strange, right? But having binoculars could have saved the Titanic. Why? Because there were no sonar systems back then. The lookout crew had to rely on binoculars to spot potential dangers ahead. But the binoculars were locked away in a compartment, and the key was lost. The second officer, David Blair, had been replaced just before the ship set sail and forgot to hand over the key. By the time the crew realized the binoculars were missing, it was too late. But that's not all. The Titanic was speeding that night, much faster than it was supposed to be going. Why? Because they were behind schedule, and they couldn't afford a delay. They were trying to break records, but that decision played a role in the disaster. Another shocking fact is that there weren't enough lifeboats. To accommodate everyone on board, the Titanic needed about 60 lifeboats, but the designers only planned for 48, and eventually, they cut the number down to just 20. This was done for cosmetic reasons. The deck looked too crowded with more lifeboats. .20 boats could only seat a third of the passengers, but at the time, this was technically legal, based on the ship's tonnage, not its passenger count. To make things worse, the lifeboat drill scheduled for the morning of the disaster was canceled by Captain Smith, and many boats were launched only half full because people didn't realize the danger until it was too late. As the ship sank, the crew sent out distress signals, but one ship nearby, the Californian, ignored the flares. The captain of the Californian lost his job after this, but modern research has revealed that he may have been innocent. Light refraction caused by atmospheric conditions likely prevented him from seeing the Titanic's signals. All of these things, the fire, the missing binoculars, the speed, the lack of lifeboats, and the ignored distress signals, combined to create a perfect storm of disaster. Whether it was fire or ice, the result was the same: hundreds of lives lost, and a tragedy that still baffles scientists today. What do you think? Do you believe it was the fire that sank the Titanic, or do you think the iceberg is still the main culprit? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe